Going to be a trophy handed out in Spanish football this week. The Supercopa de España taking place in Saudi Arabia. These are the semi-finals we've got to look forward to. One on Wednesday, one on Thursday. Barca against Athletic Club is on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Then at the same time, the Madrid derby, Atletico Madrid against Real Madrid, for us to look forward to, and a spot in the finals at stake. There has been some criticism from quite a few of the players about the fact that this is taking place in Saudi Arabia. Here's Inaki Williams from Athletic Club. He said it's a shame that such a beautiful match was played so far away, because I think that if it had been played closer, the stadium would have been filled with many of our fans. Let's get a bit more on this competition with our Spanish correspondent, Phil Kitrimilides. Phil, great to see you as always. I mean, Inaki Williams speaking for quite a lot of people there, a bit frustrated that they're having to make this trip all the way over to Saudi Arabia to play in these games. What is the feeling in Spanish football? Is this just, following the money?
Well, it is. It's 40 million euros a year for the Spanish Football Federation from Saudi Arabia to play the Spanish Super Cup in Saudi Arabia, many thousands of miles from Spain. So, yeah, it is essentially all about money. And Inaki Williams was voicing how a lot of Athletic Club fans feel. And I think it's worth putting in a little bit of context here. Athletic Club are a very special case in terms of world football, because they are basically the only club I can think of in world football who don't necessarily prioritize money. Because if they thought, how can we make the most amount of money? How can we be the most successful team that we can be? They would allow non-Basque players to play for them, and they don't. So there's one very simple thing that they could do to be more successful and make more money, which they don't do. So Iñaki speaking for their fan base, and their fan base, they think they're special. They are quite special because they do have this special selection policy. But a lot of Spanish fans think, why is it being playing in Saudi Arabia? But we kind of got used to it now. It's kind of just like, okay, it's January, they're going to Saudi Arabia, they're going to play a couple of games there. So yeah, as with everything, initially there was skepticism, initially there was quite a lot of pushback, but there's been less and less pushback, and people have just gotten used to the fact that every January this kind of happens now.
Phil, I want to touch on a fact that you just made right there. The Athletic Club are a unique club. They're different. They kind of remind me of my club, FC St. Pauli, especially with the culture, how they're connected with their supporters. They prioritise success, performance, and look after the supporters more than money, which I think is truly important. But the Basque influence you talked about right there, and the importance of having players from that region, is it holding them back from better performance? Because this year, I'm looking at their performance. It's not been great. They're not scoring many goals. Are they struggling to create players? Are they struggling to find players on loan from that region to be able to bring professional success as well?
Yeah, Ian, they really are. Because remember, they're in the Champions League. Last season, they qualified for the Champions League. And when you get into the Champions League after a decade out, like Athletic Club had, what would a quote-unquote normal club go and do? They'd go and strengthen their squad considerably, and Athletic can't do that because of their unique selection policy. They made a couple of signings. They did bring Aymeric Laporte back to the club. They signed a right-back from Osasuna, Jesus Arezzo, and got Robert Navarro in on a free from Mallorca. Not transfers that are going to set the world alight and really help them to manage juggling La Liga and the Champions League. So yes, this selection policy does hold them back. It's what I said before. They would be more successful if they allowed themselves not to play non-Basque players. But listen, they're the only team in La Liga who've never been relegated, along with Barcelona and Real Madrid. And there was a survey of their fans done a few years ago, and they would prefer to be relegated than to give up this selection policy. So it's at the very core of their identity. It's what they're all about. I don't think they're ever going to give it up. And, props to them for achieving what they've achieved within their self-imposed massive limitations.
It's also an important game, this one, for Athletic Club. Is there a sense, we saw some photos there of Ernesto Valverde, given the way they've been playing this season and not maybe living up to the expectations that they set last season, is he under pressure at all as their boss?
Not under pressure in that he's going to sort of lose his job anytime soon, but I think there is just a feeling, a little bit of deflation around the club. They worked so hard to get into the Champions League, and then they've been a bit disappointing in the Champions League. They had a good draw against PSG in the last round, and they're just about still in mathematically with a chance of qualifying for the playoff phase. But there's a little bit of a feeling like, oh, we worked so hard to get here, and then it's all kind of just petered out. And actually, Valverde was resting players in the Champions League for La Liga in some rounds. He was prioritizing La Liga, which feels a little bit strange. So, yeah, there's just a feeling like, and, Ian, you touched about them not scoring goals. If you look at their goals minus their expected goals, they've got the worst rate in La Liga. They should have scored 10 more goals than they have, given the chances that they've created. They have really, really underperformed in that particular metric. And there is just a feeling like, yeah, you should be probably doing better than 8th or 9th in the table. But also, this is Athletic. They do have these huge limitations, and they've got a chance to win silverware. And of all the 4 teams in the Spanish Super Cup, the Spanish Super Cup would mean the most to Athletic Club. It's not necessarily, I think this is most important for Real Madrid, and I'm sure we'll talk about them tomorrow, but for Athletic, it would mean the most, this piece of silverware.
Phil, stay there. We'll be back with you in just a second. We're going to focus on Athletic Club's opponents, Barcelona now. Here's their head coach, Hansi Flick, speaking ahead of the game.
2 matches to win the title, and is the shortest way to do this, and this is the motivation enough. It's as a club, as Barcelona, you want to win titles. This is what the fans want to do, want to see, the club wants to see, and of course also the player. We are here to give the best to being successful, and this is what we want.
Phil, rewind a few weeks after that Chelsea game in the Champions League. Barcelona were reeling. We were obviously discussing the high line, the efforts that they were making to kind of leak goals. But since then, Barcelona have been absolutely perfect. 8 wins in all competitions, 21 goals scored. They've sorted out the high line issue as well, conceding less goals. Hansi Flick's turned it around in their season.
I don't want to be too simplistic about this analysis, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the fact that Joan Garcia is back in goal and that has helped. I mean, you said they've kept 4 clean sheets. They've kept 4 clean sheets in a row, 4 consecutive clean sheets in all competitions for the first time in 3 years, which I was very surprised about when I figured out that stat. But yeah, Joan Garcia has been absolutely monumental, particularly in the Catalan derby at the weekend, which was one of the best individual goalkeeping displays I've seen in La Liga in many, many years, given the hostile atmosphere, given the pressure that was on him, the level and quality of his overall performance. And it's not just about the saves that he makes, which are extraordinary, but it's also about him coming out and also being like the last line of defense. He's almost like a sweeper at times, coming out of his box, and then his distribution is absolutely impeccable as well. So he helps all of Barcelona's play, not just stopping goals, which is what he's primarily there for. So that's helped a lot. And yeah, Barcelona have been able to win ugly a few times. The last victory against Espanyol wasn't their best attacking performance, but they managed to get it over the line thanks to Joan Garcia being brilliant, and then them having a superb firepower. So yeah, I think it's 9 consecutive wins in La Liga. They're looking very, very strong, and they are the team to beat in this competition quite clearly. They're the holders, they're the defending champions, they're top of La Liga, they're the favourites for the Spanish Super Cup.
Yeah, it's quite amazing how quickly things can turn around in football. Obviously, a top-class goalkeeping performance, and especially going back to your former club and putting that type of a performance in, is exceptional. And of course, Barcelona now favourites and look like they're going to have a very good season. But you've called so many of their games this campaign, and even recently as well. Where would you like to see them improve? Like, where is the weakness right now under Hansi Flick's side that you think maybe Athletic Club could exploit in this game that maybe Barcelona still need to look to improve in?
So I don't necessarily think it'll be exploited in this game against Athletic Club, because I don't think they necessarily have the power to do so. But they've been playing Gerard Martin at centre-back. And Gerard Martin is their substitute left-back, who Hansi Flick has decided can be their starting centre-back. And they've got Eric Garcia as their starting holding midfielder, who Hansi Flick has decided can do a good job in midfield. And he can. I just think when it comes to the really elite high-level games, big teams, elite teams will look at those 2 players and think Gerard Martin at centre-back, Eric Garcia in midfield. Those are 2 weak points at the highest level that we can attack. I don't think Athletic Club have necessarily the means to do that, and I think Barcelona should get through the game tomorrow relatively comfortably. But if you're asking me for weak points in the team, those are two that would stand out pretty obviously to me if I was the manager of an elite team in the Champions League looking to take on Barcelona this season.